My name is Eve Elizabeth. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Chicago. I am an empath, which means that I feel all the feels. I also have a chronic illness called fibromyalgia, which presents itself in a number of ways. Everything from chronic pain to fatigue to depression and anxiety, etc. And because of both of those things, I have chosen to become a health and life coach for women who identify as empaths and who oftentimes empaths develop chronic pain, autoimmune, and other chronic illnesses. And since I have healed from that, I really feel called to empower women around that. And my stand is that they do not have to take these 7 years that it took me to heal.
I want to start first by asking you the question that I open these interviews with, and then we will dive right into your story. What do you think people's first impression of you is?
Hmm, that's an excellent question. And I pause because I find that we often don't see ourselves the way that other people see us. And I had to step outside of myself for a moment. I think people do see me as someone who is there for others, that I am actually a real stand for empowering people out in life. Um, yeah, honestly.
I love that. And that speaks so much to what you said in your introduction because it, you said you're a true empath. And so I would think that naturally you are smiling at people as you pass them by and really caring and asking genuine questions. Um, and so that would make sense that that's the way you feel that people view you.
Yeah.
So, in your introduction, you stated your name as Eve,
Mhm.
and I know that on your screen it says Carrie, and we've emailed, and I know I'm a little confused, so I want some
Got it.
clarification.
Perfect. Perfect. And I wondered, I was like, do I address this? And so we get to. So my full name is Caroline Elizabeth Wenzel, born name. And in a meditation, when I was connecting with my spirit guides, ancestors, higher power, I literally kept hearing this pulse of like Eve, 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 Eve. And I was like, what is that about? And I looked up my given name on my birth certificate, and my name, Caroline Elizabeth Wenzel, means strong woman. Um, oh, word, oath of, there it is, oath of God, praised with glory. And Caroline Eve Elizabeth is strong woman, living oath of God, praised with glory. And what resonated about that for me and who I'm stepping into as Eve Elizabeth is taking back Eve as the idea of this sort of subservient, obedient woman trope in the world and really being the living embodiment of what empowerment means for women.
I love that. I love that. Well, that makes total sense. And, I love that you talked about meditation and connecting with yourself and a higher power, and not even necessarily a higher power, but a higher state of being, right? Um, so you talk about the meditation, which again, I love meditating. Um, you talked also about your diagnosis of fibromyalgia. First, I want to ask at what age that you received your diagnosis and maybe talk a little bit about that. But also, could you tie in if um, that led you to the meditation or if that came from a different place?
Ah, yes. So I was diagnosed 8 years ago. I'm like, do the math on that. That would make me 31 at the time. Shh, secret. And I do want to be upfront about this. I was diagnosed 3 months after being sexually assaulted. And it's something I talk about now because um, fibromyalgia is largely based in chronic stress and trauma. And many of the women, it affects women, they're 90% of the people who have fibromyalgia are women. And um, a lot of them have past traumas and abuse in their history. So meditation has come both through the exploration of my own spirituality and as a pathway to healing from this thing that my body has.
I will say that I have an autoimmune disorder myself. I have ulcerative colitis, and I
Mm,
came to meditation as a way to heal myself as well. And like you had mentioned, traumas and stressors are triggers for my autoimmune disorder as well. And it's made a huge difference in my life, meditating and doing yoga and and calming my inside, literally from the inside out.
yeah.
So I totally get what you're saying. Now back to you. Um, so I want to touch on what you mentioned that you said you now are comfortable talking about. What could you lend to other women who have had a sexual assault, which I'm so sorry that you had to experience that, um, that then led you to obviously this fibromyalgia diagnosis? And what, besides the meditation, have you done for yourself, for Eve, to feel empowered again? Because I imagine that some of that had been stripped away and you had to find it again.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Shortly after it happened, I happened to be living in my parents' home, and I told my mother, and she wanted to know what I wanted to do about it. Of course, it freaked her out. And she's like, "Do you want to call the police?" And I really had no way of identifying the people who did it and where they were. And after that, maybe it's a Midwestern thing. We have a thing about being fine with a capital F. Like, I just broke my arm, my house is on fire, I lost my job, but I'm fine. Thanks for asking. And so I was very much fine until about 2 years ago. And I didn't even realize that I hadn't actually dealt with it at all, that I had buried it and suppressed it, pushed it down and pushed it down and pushed it down until it was almost like it never happened to me. And part of why I share that is because in the sharing of my experience with others and the fielding of their questions, I have found a certain level of peace and strength in that because I know so many women who have been sexually assaulted, and the statistics around that lie. There are so many more of us. And there are people out there who are saying, oh, 1 in 3, that's got to be way too high. I'm telling you, it's wrong because it's too low. In high school, many of my friends were assaulted. By the time I finished college, almost all of them had been, including the women I met in college. And I had to deal with, I'm going off track a little bit and I'm going to do it anyway. I had to deal with the people in charge at college, the head of the university, when I identified somebody who was praying, waited to the end of parties to find the drunkest woman to take home with them. I got the, do you really want to ruin this man's life speech? Yeah, I did. I got that. And that, oh, boys will be boys and he's just having fun and it's partying. And this was in the early 2000s. And I share that because it's pervasive in our culture. Um, I came back to your question. In meditation, I have also found peace simply in calming my nervous system. Um, we get triggered by a lot of things, and especially with fibromyalgia, that will cause will cause flares, which can show up in many, many different ways. What I would say to women who have been assaulted, and you know what? No, raped. I am not down with the softening of that term, and I understand that assault can involve more than actually being raped, and that is what happened to me. And saying it actually had, I still feel a visceral, like in my core, like pain at saying that. So I can admit that there's still stuff that I have not totally untangled from it. But even just talking to men about it who are like, where are they? I want to go beat the crap out of them. And just saying, like, that's, I appreciate it. And that's not what I need from you. What I need from you is to hear me and my pain and to tell everyone, all the men that you know in your life, that this sort of behavior is not okay. And that you need to be really mindful of your actions, and drunk isn't an excuse. Don't
Yep.
be quiet about it, ladies. If you haven't shared it, find your best friend in the whole world and just tell them, hey, this happened to me, and see what comes up.
I think that's wonderful advice, because you said something in the beginning of discussing that about finally being able to talk about it and then finding someone that you love that loves you and sharing. There's strength in numbers, and there's strength in being supported and letting go of fear, especially fear of judgment around something so severe. And I'm so proud of you
Thank you.
for being so strong
Thank you.
and so brave and bold. And I'm inspired by your desire to help other women help themselves. Um, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that if anyone watching this wants to reach out to you on social media, that you would be open to that.
Yes, I absolutely would.
So,
And I really like thank you so much for the acknowledgement. And I want to point out to women seeing this that I don't always feel strong in that. I have come so far and I am so strong. And letting go, I didn't want to step over this because letting go of blaming myself on top of sharing is what has led to the strength that I have here. And it's okay to not always feel strong, no matter how far you've come, to give yourself that space.
and that's a huge point. And I think that people forget that it's okay to have feelings and it's okay
Yeah.
to work through them. And it's okay to, like you said in the beginning, feel all the feels and be and show our emotions. Um, that comes back to the no judgment aspect of why it's so important for me to do these interviews and to share stories like yours and other ones that I've shared so that people can get comfortable and understand that there is space for no judgment. There is a way to live with one another as human beings. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what they've been through, but we have to attempt to understand and be like you and empathize. I would like to ask a question to kind of lift us up here a little bit. What is something that would surprise people to know about you?
Oh my goodness. Um, you know what? There are a couple things. It depends on who I'm talking to. So some people would be very surprised by all of the woo-woo magic that I am, because I am not always that with people. Sometimes I don't find it helpful to tell people to their faces that I know exactly what's going on in their head and what they're feeling, because they may not be present to it, and it's not always helpful to a conversation. And they may not resonate with crystals and incense and tarot cards. So that could surprise people. On the fibromyalgia side, I would say people would be surprised, if not shocked, that I take kung fu. Like, I can get hit hard and not have a flare. I train for a half marathon. I dance, take archery. I live a really full life. I can go dancing with my friends. I may need to hydrate really well so I don't flare on that one. But yeah, people, it's possible to live a full life.
Kung Fu. I'm like, note to self, completely surprised. Never would have expected you to say that at all. Will you define fibromyalgia for everyone that's watching since we've talked about it so much? Just a brief definition so that those watching may or may not understand why you saying those things about them being surprising would be surprising to someone with fibromyalgia.
Absolutely. So fibromyalgia, the leading theory, and I have to say theory because doctors don't really understand it. The leading theory is that fibromyalgia is caused essentially by chronic stress. So essentially, you have your flight or fight system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, for those of you science nerds, and your flight or fight response gets turned into the on position and stuck there. So you don't ever go into rest. Your body does not heal. And being in a constant flight or fight mode means that you burn out all the mitochondria in your cells, you have vitamin deficiencies. It accounts for pretty much all the stuff that goes on in your body with fibro, which is chronic pain, which ranges from joints to muscles to fascia to skin. Some people get migraines, IBS, depression and anxiety are huge ones, and then chronic fatigue, which for those of you who don't know, because in these times, people talk about like brain fog and chronic fatigue, and it is not what people like us experience. Chronic fatigue looks like I'm fine, and all of a sudden I start getting spacey, and I will literally like have to lay down and pass out for 6 hours, and I will be gasping awake trying to regain my consciousness, and not it's sort of like drowning in like a dark hole, and like I cannot wake myself up and I feel panicked about it, and that's for an extended period of time, and I may eventually pass out and just not wake up, and I may not hear my phone, so people tend to worry about me. Now I've informed people that this happens, and I'm like, cool, if you don't hear from me in 24 hours, that's when you should worry. Like, give me at least 12, and 24 is too long.
Wow.
So, and our stressors, our triggers can be everything from food to stressful situations. Oh, my favorite is temperature change. For some people, it's hot. For some people, it's cold. Um, any kind of precipitation, um, smells, loud noises. I'm like, have I covered all of them? So it's kind of all the things. You can also get migraines. It's lots of fun.
It's yeah, I know that autoimmune disorders are no fun from personal experience. And
Yeah.
then I had another person on talking about invisible disabilities and her seizures. And so just, the unknown of what people, don't see and what's bothering you. I experienced that myself. So I can only imagine what that's like for you and others with fibromyalgia. But thank you for sharing and telling that story also, because I think that's important for awareness and for consciousness when we meet people and when we um, encounter someone with a disability or a disease that we don't understand. So
Yeah.
I I can't say enough about the things you've talked about today. And I know that we had to move this interview a couple of times for scheduling. And I am beyond excited that it finally happened. And you have definitely enriched my life today and have seriously, you have talk about empowering. I have a long day in front of me today, and I feel more empowered to take it on just from having this conversation and just
Oh,
from your energy that is coming through, even on Zoom. And I can only imagine the women that you get to work with in person and the energy that they can literally feel coming from you. Um, so again, I thank you so much for taking the time to to come on today and to share your story.
oh my God. Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share my story because
Absolutely.
truly I want people to know what's available to them, what's possible, that you are not stuck in however you are right now, which, by the way, however you are is fine. It is, it's okay. It's a journey. And yeah, no, it was just thank you. I really do feel so blessed and just so much gratitude for you and what you're creating here.
Oh, well, thank you. And yes, like I said, the feeling is mutual. So as I close out our conversation and close out this interview, my final question I'd like to ask you is, as you are empowering women, as you are moving about your community, if you had the opportunity to hold up a sign that says one thing about you, what would you want people to know?
You are not alone.